On this episode of the Star Trek Universe podcast, we are talking about episode 108, Broken Pieces, right after this commercial that we have absolutely no control over.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
What's up, Dave?
I don't know, man. Freaking shutdowns and coronavirus, and Tom Hanks has it.
I heard that. Yeah, that sucks.
I don't know
scary.
what to do.
Well, you know, it's it's a scary thing. All this kicking around, and you know, who knows how scared we should be. But it definitely doesn't seem like a good thing.
Well, no, it's not a good thing.
Nope. But we're here to talk Star Trek.
That's right. A very good thing.
Yes, very good thing. I enjoyed this episode, but I did have a couple problems, I gotta say.
Ooh, you had problems?
I'm coming in hot today. I'm coming in hot.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. I'm normally pretty positive, especially on a new episode. You know, it's exciting to have them. But yeah. Well, I don't know. Should we go positive first, or should I just get the negative out of the way?
I mean, well,
or should we just talk about something?
Which one is the bulk?
The bulk. I mean, I don't know. To be honest, I guess
just talk about the bad because
I've brought it up now. Now it'll be the targ in the room. You know.
All right.
My couple negatives. First off, they've been showing this in the trailer for weeks where Seven connects to the Borg, apparently. And it seems...
I thought it was only since last week.
That may be. That's still a week of me speculating and talking about and being excited about her connecting. And then, you know, in this episode, they say, you know, I can connect them. I can basically, she basically can become a Borg queen if she wants to, which is, you know, that's kind of new information. That's a big deal. And she does it. And with what seems like no effect or consequences. You know?
I'm not sure that's true. I don't think I agree with that.
Well, no, I think by no effect, I mean all of these Borg apparently just get sucked into space. Like she doesn't she can't actually affect the battle because at least I would have liked to see they weren't ready to suck them out into space or something, and she makes some impact by going in. You know what I mean?
Well, she did still control a bunch of XBs who attacked Girl.
I saw the XBs attack the Girl, but were they being controlled?
I thought so.
See, I thought that possibly, but that crossed my mind. But I thought the whole point was the XBs have had their implants removed, so they're no longer part of the collective. They can't be reached out to the way... At least not controlled the way the other Borg. If so, what's the difference between them and the Borg?
Maybe they didn't.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that. And so this is all part of my problem with the whole thing. Is I felt like that, her preparing to become a Borg queen and assimilate a bunch of people, that's a big deal for Seven. And it felt like a very small B plot of this episode. That almost it had no effect, and then at the end, instead of her being caught up in it, or you know, she as Borg says Annika has more work to do, and then just disconnects as if she has utter control over everything. And also, I guess I would think that she would have experienced a lot of pain, which she yells no. I would think that she experienced all of the deaths of all those Borg that got sucked into space, which should scar her. I don't know. It just felt like that entire action that just happened could have been a huge point in Seven's life to me. That seemed like the kind of thing that would hurt Seven, scar her, and it may go forward to do that. But this episode was so not focused on it that it felt like too big of a thing to relegate to a B plot when the A plot is everyone just talking on the ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think they had room to go into it, but I do think that they're setting up stuff.
Like, do you think they're setting up the fact that she has that ability so that later maybe she'll do it again or something to that effect?
Well, what's interesting is she referred to herself in the third person, but not even Seven. She said Annika.
Annika, yes.
So that's really interesting. Almost like the Queen was differentiating herself from the human counterpart.
Yes, I agree. A few weeks ago, we had a theory about what if they released Seven from the Borg Collective originally, and then she's been like out collecting information all this time, and now it's time to bring her home or something like that. Like that was the theory we were kicking around. And this reminded me of that theory because it's almost as if the Borg know that Annika has more to do. So like her saying we are Borg, she says Annika has more work to do, as if the Borg still have something planned for her.
Yeah.
So I agree. That is interesting. But it seemed like that is a weird, it's a long way to go to get that piece of information and to have no effect on the battle, it seems, unless the XBs were being controlled. But I thought that was part of being de-assimilated, you couldn't do that. It just seemed like a small part of an episode when it should be a very important thing for Seven. And so, I don't know. That kind of bothered me.
I think it still was an important thing for Seven, and I definitely felt the weight of it. There was some stuff implied here about the Borg too, because it was Elnor asked her, "Is this where the Queen? Is this the Queen's quarters or whatever?" And she was like, "No." And then it was but she comes here, and it insinuated to me that anyone could be a Borg Queen as long as they were in the Queen's chambers. And I think that's what we witnessed, is Seven accessing the Queen hub and controlling those Borg.
Yes.
And I think it spoke a lot to where she's willing to go, and also I wouldn't believe that Seven hadn't experienced the deaths of countless Borg before.
Sure.
She was, connected. So I don't think, while it affected her emotionally, I don't think it's going to irrevocably scar her.
Well, it's a different thing, though, when you are just one of the Borg and you see a lot of your brethren fall, versus where you are controlling all of the Borg. You assimilate them, you take away their individuality, which, I mean, it seems like a lot of these Borg were asleep anyway, but they wake up to find their individuality taken by this force they don't understand or don't recognize, this new, or maybe they do recognize her as Annika or 7 of 9 or whatever. And then they are jettisoned immediately. It just seems like it would be a lot of like confusion and pain, and she would feel responsible to some degree, because I mean, it is the fact that she activates all those pods. That's when she didn't see this happen, but that's when that Romulan said, "Do it now, jettison them." It's like it was like Seven's actions caused and not necessarily in the long run, they probably would have killed the Borg anyway. But in many ways, Seven's actions sped along the death of all these Borg. It just seems like she would be guilt-stricken or something. Yeah, who knows? She may be. It just felt like
she didn't seem happy.
This felt like, to me, one of the biggest things that would have, unless this is something she does all the time now, like maybe she goes around from cube to cube controlling them whenever she feels like it because she has enough control.
I don't think so
either.
Especially considering that she was
reticent to do it.
She was reticent because she said they won't want to be released, and I might not want to release them.
Right. It was cool. It was real cool, but man, it just felt like it should have been. This felt like one of the biggest events in Seven's life. Like that's how it should have been. And it seemed like to be a B plot. And I think it's because this is a show called Picard, and they're trying to introduce who Seven is now in these little B plot stories. And to me, this should have been a huge deal, and it felt like a B plot. That's my, and I meant to say that as a small quibble. I don't mean for it to be a huge deal. Nothing in this episode that happens, I'm like, nothing that happened is a problem. It's that it felt weird for it to be such a small part of the episode. That's all I'm saying.
I think I just didn't feel like it was a small part of the episode. I thought we unlocked a whole lot of stuff we unpacked a whole bunch of stuff about the Borg. And then we're left with the pieces and trying to figure out what those pieces exactly mean. But I didn't feel like it was, it was B plot in terms of structure alone. I felt like it was a very big piece of the puzzle.
Well, structure and time. I just scanned through the episode to check. It's about 5 minutes of a 40-minute of an hour-long episode.
Mm-hmm.
That's a B plot. I mean, not just structure alone, but like that's time. That's the amount of focus it got. You keep cutting away from this. I feel like if you're going to have this episode. Anyway, I don't want to argue about it because I just saying I feel that way. We can move on. It's not a huge deal to me. It's just like, I just don't want to get like bogged down in it and talk about a negative for an hour.
It was a huge deal to me, but I felt like that 5 minutes was like spoke volumes and was a really big deal in terms of Star Trek. And I got exactly what I wanted from it, except for more answers. But I'm willing to wait to see what exactly is going to come of it. Yeah,
I hear you. To me, it felt like this episode focused on a different thing. And I mean, it's not like the big stuff isn't going on over on the other side. We get a lot of character movement on the ship. What's the ship's name?
La Serena.
La Serena, yeah. We get a lot of character stuff over there. I really enjoyed Rafi investigating through the eyes of the holograms on board. We kind of get a sense of a little more about where these holograms come from and why they are the way they are, and that's all kind of fun.
Yeah, I didn't quite catch that.
He says when he set up the holograms, he set them up to self-scan. So he scanned himself to be the archetype for the holograms to be copied off of, but also I think it seemed to allude that it also set him up to be like a psychological scan of him. So that's how they know so much about him and they know his history, but he has intentionally gone and deleted certain things. And I'm sure what happens is they bring up something he doesn't want them to know, like the death of the captain or like, the specifics of it. And he deletes those things, or he deletes them because they're supposed to be, classified materials that he doesn't want to getting out,
right?
Because he did cover it up himself, and he feels regret for that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't quite catch what they had said.
Yeah, it said something about how he set it up as self-scan, and he tells the holograms that it was a mistake. He didn't mean to make them all look like him, but he has never changed it. So clearly he doesn't really mind. And he doesn't know if he's being truthful when he says he did it by mistake or whatever. I thought that was fun.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That actually Rios is my other sort of negative thing. I thought it strained my disbelief a little bit that every character on this show, their origins is in the synth ban.
Yeah.
That was a little weird. I thought Rios, I knew he had this pain of his captain dying, but the fact that his captain dying was all... It ties everything together thematically, of course.
And I thought they would tie stuff together thematically. I didn't think they would actually, literally tie it together.
Right. Right. Literally, he's met a version of Soji before. That seems to, it seems a little too convenient that he's the guy they called to be their captain. And then he happens to be the guy that, has met one of the few people. We don't know. Who knows? Maybe these synths from this planet have sent emissaries constantly for the last 200 years, and tons of captains or tons of Starfleet officers have had experiences with them, but it doesn't seem that way, It seems like this is a very specific thing that happened to Rios, and he would be one of the few people who has met a version of Soji and Daj before, And he just happens to be the guy they hire as the pilot because Raffi happens to know him, I guess.
Yeah, so far that is a very thin piece of plot that just doesn't...
It's very convenient. Very, very convenient.
Yeah, it's just... okay.
So, so anyway, those are my two negatives that I just felt like... just watching them, like... And honestly, the episode felt a little disjointed all around. It felt almost like they, like, just jumbled two together or something. I don't know. Just when Jurati makes the turn, she just killed her lover and mentor. And it seemed like the quick turn to caring for Soji seemed too quick. Like I wouldn't believe it if I were them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then they bring her into their little planning and discussion session. And I was just kind of like, she should be in whatever the brig is on the ship, you know?
Yeah, I didn't buy that she should just be like, well, I'm over murdering people now. So
yeah, that was, we talked about it a lot last week about how she could have a redemption arc. She could still be redeemed. But that's not enough. I'm done. She said, literally, I'm done murdering now. Is that supposed to be enough for us to feel her character has been redeemed?
I don't think so. I think she's getting off easy. And if these were, if these are good writers, I imagine she'll die.
Sure. I think that's probable. But I also think if these were good writers, I hate to say that because I actually really love this show. But if there's good writing happening, I also don't see why Picard or Rios, who barely trusts, Soji, who he has the synth problem that makes him not trust her. And the fact that she's so powerful, that makes sense. But like, he suddenly is okay with them sort of bringing Jurati back into the fold. Like, I don't know. And Raffi too, like Raffi is so suspicious. And she's suspicious of everyone. And she's suspicious of Jurati specifically. Like, it just seemed weird that she comes in and sits down at that table and like has that discussion like she's part of the crew again. Yeah. It was not enough. She did not go through enough. She needed to do something. She needed to like save Soji or like fight a Romulan or like do something for me to be back on her side. It sucks because I like Jurati so much and I want to like her. And I think they're banking on that, but like having the crew like her inexplicably makes me not like her. Like I want them to distrust her.
I'm not sure it was inexplicable because when you think about it, she did severely risk sacrificing herself. That's true. To save the crew by injecting herself with that serum. So.
That's true. That's a good point. And actually, now that we're talking about all this, that actually gives me an idea, and maybe this all goes together. You're right. That is a reason for them to trust her. She did do a thing. So that is a good point.
And then it turns out she was, basically screwed with mentally by a half Vulcan. Yeah. And I think Raffi is just so, or Raffi, however you say her name, is just so freaking happy that someone is sitting here going, hey, all of your theories, everything that you ruined your life for, it's all true.
That's true. That's a good point. And Rios has other personal reasons to maybe like her, care about her. They had a bit of a physical relationship recently.
Yeah, and I think his distrust of synths and whatnot, I think they explained that his willingness to help Soji out, I think that's why they created the convenience of Jana.
I agree. Again, that convenience bothers me, but yeah, I think that's part of it.
I see why they did the things they did.
Me too. Yeah. Obviously, I've said the two things that bother me. The Jurati thing doesn't bother me as much now that we've talked it out. Now that I'm hearing what all we're saying and kind of like analyzing it. I think that she's still on the side of O, which has obviously been an option all along.
Yeah.
When she said to Soji, I would never try to murder you now, now that I've met you. It didn't really ring true to me. I was like, they're going to have there's going to be a future fight between the two of them, I think.
Maybe.
But then at the end of this episode, when we see that the Romulan scout ship with Narek on it is still on their tail, that made me think that Jurati's taking of that poison to get rid of the radiation in her system or whatever, maybe that was all an act to get back on their side.
Yeah. That's possible.
And maybe there's some other way that she is still allowing Narek to track her, but by losing the radiation, he knows that that was a signal to him to back off or something like that, instead of actually getting rid of the ability to track. Interesting. So anyway, we'll see what else we got this episode. Rafi, did she drink in Rios's quarters? Was that alcohol? I think so.
I assumed. I don't know.
I'm just she clearly is trying to give up alcohol. She got rid of it in her quarters.
I'm not trying to track Rafi's sobriety. I don't think it's a real thing.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think it was a thing she told her son to try to get back on his good side.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I do think she was trying at that point. And I guess now she's not, or she's going back and forth.
Or maybe she doesn't consider alcohol as being, because she said I'm clean.
No, I think she definitely does. That's why she shut it down in her quarters.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. So she walks over to, that's the whole thing about this episode, is she can't get it in her quarters. So then she walks into Rios's room to check on him. But then she immediately walks directly over to his replicator, which I thought was pretty great.
Yeah, I forgot about that completely. It
was just like, there's a replicator that doesn't have my block on it. Have you ever heard about the gambling law in some state? I want to say it's some like northwestern state or something. I can't even remember which state, but there's some gambling law in some state where if you can ask them to never allow you to gamble. Okay, like that's the law. You can put yourself on a list that means you can never gamble. And if you are caught gambling, you can't win. Like they take your money. And so there's this crazy story about this guy who, like, if you're winning small amounts, they won't ever notice, right? Because you can go in and out of a casino as long as you have your ID. They don't check. You just go in and play. This guy, he put himself on the list to try to get out of, because it was an addiction, And he put himself on this list so he'd never go do it again. And then he would go anyway. And then he went and he won like multiple millions of dollars. But so they went to pay him out and they see his name on the list. And so they won't give him the money. It's the worst.
Oh, it sucks.
It's a true story. It's crazy.
I mean, he would have squandered it.
Possibly. But yeah. It's just such a horrible thing, especially if you've been squandering your winnings, like your small paltry winnings your whole life and losing all your money. And then all of a sudden there's like, oh, here's millions of dollars, but you can't have it. It's awful. Sick. It's an awful story. Anyway, I guess I just expected a lot more from this Borg thing that was happening this episode. Yeah,
they did play it up heavily in the trailer.
Yeah, and I don't not just in the trailer, but in this episode, I felt like it was in just the concept of what they're doing, and like so during Voyager, we got a lot of weird. Like a lot of Borg became a lot less scary because they sort of did too much with them and didn't treat them with the same kind of reverence and fear that like previous shows had, I guess. shows and books. I think they overdid it to some degree. I think that's well-trodden territory.
I think, to be fair to Voyager, I think everything after Best of Both Worlds Part 1 was diminishing returns for the Borg. Except for maybe First Contact, which is still demystified them in ways that is kind of unforgivable.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with First Contact. Do you just think the use of the Borg Queen was too demystifying?
Oh, absolutely.
I mostly agree with that. I never really liked the concept.
She's a great foil.
Yeah. But she turns them into the entirety of the Borg into like a mustache twirling villain that's being controlled by a queen instead of, what Hugh was in iBorg, which is like a person that really wants to be a part of the collective because he believes in it. You know what I mean? And they got back to that here. And that's why I was so disappointed that it seemed to mean so little, at least from a plot perspective, because they kind of did go back to like, that's what the Borg are, you can be a queen, but like, it's still going to be a bunch of Borg who want your voice to control them. They want to be part of the collective. I love that.
Yeah, I really like that idea. There is a thing in old Kurt Vonnegut novels where he's created a character named Kilgore Trout. And Vonnegut writes himself into the story as the god of that universe. And earlier in Breakfast of Champions, Kilgore Trout decides that he's going to leave his home, and he like gives his bird, he opens the bird cage and allows the bird free will, and the bird flies to the window, and he opens the window, and then the bird flies back to his cage, and he's like, you chose to be caged. I get it. And then later Vonnegut frees his creations, including Kilgore Trout. He meets Kilgore Trout and frees him, gives him free will. And then later in another book, Kilgore Trout goes back to Vonnegut and begs to be brought back because he doesn't like free will.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know. It's kind of a wonderfully human thing.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And that's what I love about the Borg. Like, in a weird way, that sort of alien idea of wanting to be part of the collective is the thing that humanizes the Borg more than anything. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I love that in iBorg. And I even love that out of Seven in Voyager, where she's always wanting to go back. But and so I liked that they really focused on that here. Well, they said they acted like they were going to focus on it, and then it just had no effect at all. It seemed.
See, that's so unfair, though. It had no effect. I don't believe that's true at all.
It had no effect on the battle. Well, unless the XBs were part of it, which we just don't know.
But it clearly had an effect on Seven, and I think it will definitely have an effect on storylines going forward.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. But it just seems like such small potatoes in this episode. When you they spent almost the same amount of time with Rafi. Like the plot line of her interviewing all of the holograms felt like Star Trek, like a Stimble plot line, like a kind of silly. I mean, obviously it led to something sort of serious, but like it's like serious and plucky and fun, and like she's interviewing a bunch of different Rioses, and like it's funny, it's cute and funny. But they spent almost as much time on that scene as they did on the entirety of the Borg stuff in this episode. Anyway.
I felt like I didn't feel like that was a self-sealing Stimbolt feeling scene. I felt like it felt like Data in the holodeck talking to different historical figures trying to get an idea of what he should be doing. That's what it felt like.
I agree. I completely agree. It did feel like a B plot line.
I mean, that's fine. B plot is not a dirty word to me. And when you have so many things going on, everything's a B plot. I mean, you talk about B plots, like everything Picard was doing was pretty much a B plot in this episode. He's just kind of chilling.
Sure. Yeah. No, like clearly when you've got, and that may be my problem with this episode, is that there's just too much they're trying to do in this episode. I feel like
you mean like too many broken pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, now it's kind of a clever title.
No, far too meta for me. If that's what they mean, it's far too meta for me. But it's fine. It's all fine. Like I said, I have no problems with what they actually did. It was just this particular episode, the Borg Queen stuff, Annika stuff. Like I just felt like to me, it just was too little. We find out what the Conclave of 8 is. Mm-hmm. Eight planets instead of 8 people.
So 8 suns.
Right. 8 suns that are apparently surrounding one planet with a planet in the middle that has this information. And I guess that's actually a huge reveal. A lot of our speculation and people's speculation all over the net has been what's the Conclave 8? What is the secret? What is the secret of the Zhat Vash? And I guess we know now. What do you think? What do you think of the reveal of the secret of the Zhat Vash?
It wasn't that interesting. I somewhat wonder if what they found was from the preservers.
I wonder that too.
Like if the preservers, part of their secret is that they seeded the galaxy because they had already tried to create life with the synths and it didn't turn out well. I don't know. I think I'm just hoping for something really big and revelatory, and I'm not sure I'm going to get it now.
Yeah, well, it seems like we've got it. Like that's the secret, and it does feel underwhelming. It does. In
a lot of ways, we knew that.
Well, we knew they feared synths, so we knew this was a possible reason. Basically, the two possible reasons were it's either the future or the past, and the fact that it's the past. With no real promise, it's not like this information, the admonition. It's not like the admonition says specifically that it's going to happen again. You know what I mean? It's just that they see that it happened.
Well, except for the fact that, they're saying that it happened, X amount of 1,000 years ago, but 200,000 years ago, I think they said. But
no, I think it was 200 centuries. Is that 2,000 centuries? Yeah, maybe it was 200,000. I don't know. Go ahead.
Whatever it was.
A lot of years.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
That's it.
Yeah, since it's like 26 light years.
I think it's all the same galaxy, just in case we get feedback. But yeah, long time ago, far away.
Yeah. Probably. But yeah, anyway, we would get feedback about that, wouldn't we?
I think the Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta quadrant are all in the Milky Way, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right.
We're talking about why would they believe it so hard?
They're saying that, but like all of the vision, and I don't know if you caught it, the vision that they show Jurati. It shows a synthetic face that slowly, very, very quickly, I should say,
morphs into Data's.
Morphs into Data's face.
Yeah, to me that was allegorical in a way. Like that was that person, whoever's seeing the synths and what they're doing, they're imagining Data in that position because at this point in whatever. However many years ago, this is Commodore O showing these Zhat Vash members. Do we know how long was this cube? How long ago was this cube taken over? That 5,843 days since the last simulation. That's 16 years. So that's they said that Zhat Vash ship being taken over is actually what this episode actually revealed a whole lot of stuff because
it absolutely does.
It also answered why this cube was taken out or whatever, why it became decommissioned, because the Zhat Vash were taken over and their sort of insanity ran rampant through the Borg cube, it seemed like.
Uh-huh.
I guess that's why this Zhat Vash thing is underwhelming for me, because I feel like if right now I found out that synthetic life would destroy all life, or could destroy all life, or has in the past, or something like that, I don't know that would drive me crazy.
Yeah, with the stuff that they're showing me, I am not believing that it would make me bash my head in with a rock. Now, if using some sort of, telepathy, they're making everyone experience all the pain of the individuals that this happened to. Yeah. Like maybe there's something like that. Maybe there's like they're sharing this telepathic connection to people who died hundreds of thousands of years ago. And it though you're seeing this destruction through their eyes, and it's sort of like, it's actually very interesting. It reminds me a little bit of racism, which, I mean, clearly this is an analog for our fear of the sense, the fear of the other. And I think it's interesting because the Romulan fear of the synth is something that's passed down from some distant relative that they are trusting. So this is actually a really interesting allegory for racism that we haven't, I don't think, seen in Star Trek before, which is, why do you believe these people are worse than you? And it's just because you were told by someone else. It's someone else's experience, not yours. You know what I mean? By virtue of them experiencing that, they are experiencing it by looking into that or touching that thing, and right. But those memories of another person's experience, especially depending on how this admonition works, like it seems like that could all be very manipulative. Well, sure, but real people in the real world have done a lot of horrible things based on anecdotal evidence. Yeah, no, I'm agreeing completely. I think it's interesting, and I'm not arguing with it. I'm saying it's an interesting analog for like current racism or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you're raised in a culture that believes another culture is bad, or your parents raised you, or your religion raised you, or whatever, to believe that some other group is the other. And then even though you've never actually experienced that yourself, it causes you to hate. And that's what's happening here in a way. Mm-hmm. I'm sad we didn't get to see Deep Space 12. Yeah, I mean, I doubt it would have looked like a Cardassian station. No, I don't think so either, but, could have looked like something. Yeah, it was funny because they said Deep Space. I swear me and my wife both went, oh. Yeah, if they had gone to Deep Space Nine, I don't think it would have made any sense, because I don't think they're anywhere near Cardassian space. Nah. But, yeah, it would have been real nice. I would love to see them go back to Deep Space Nine, man. I don't think they will, because they'd have to rebuild those sets, probably, or they could probably these days they could probably CGI that stuff. And oh God, good. Don't even try to put that in anybody. Don't even put that out in the world. What, CGIing it? Yeah, right. CGI sets always look awful. Not always. I mean. These days, now for TV, possibly, because budgets, but you can get it done. Marvel, DC movies, like they look amazing, and most of the time it's just one person standing in front of a green screen. Everything is created, I mean, I don't know. I think what I would probably do is like completely, like basically have like a similar structure, but basically like totally federationize it, and they like walk in, like the outside still looks like Deep Space Nine, but then when they go in, like the interior looks like some Federation hub, and just have it be a whole commentary on like gentrification or something, right? On colonialism, and which would be sad, because they, at the end of the Deep Space Nine, they did not become members of the Federation, and it would be kind of sad if that just like they erased that decision. I know they could have since then, but still. But, well, the Deep Space Nine, was still partially a Federation station. Bajor just didn't become part of the Federation. So
that's true. But I believe Bajor
it was still under Federation command, I believe.
Yeah. It was, but it also had a Bajoran first officer. So I don't. Yeah, it's been a long time, but yeah,
who was wearing a Starfleet uniform?
She was.
Yeah, I think she got like a field commission or something. I don't know.
In the last season?
Kira totally had on a Starfleet uniform for the majority of season 7.
I don't remember that at all. Wow. Man.
I mean, I don't know. It might have just been a temporary thing. I don't remember. I need to go back and watch.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time, but I do not remember her. I don't even ever remember her wearing a Starfleet uniform, but yeah, I guess she did. I believe you.
Black and gray.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah, I really need to rewatch DS9. It's like my favorite, but it's been so many years. It's just so hard to get through those first couple seasons, even though I know the ending, the rest is so good, but I don't want to just start in the last 4, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I need to do that.
Oh, yeah, she was a commander. Yeah.
What'd you think of Clancy coming back, getting to drop another F-bomb?
I liked it because now it seems less like just a random thing to throw in for shock value and just more like who that person is.
Exactly. And it also felt like doubling down, which I kind of liked. You know, it felt like trolling the trolls that like hate that she said the F word in the first place, and now she comes back and says it again. That just felt funny to me. It made me laugh out loud. It was good.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I laughed. I felt bad about it, but
oh yeah, I also
because part of it was just really me just being like, you know, take that,
gatekeepers,
angry people.
Yeah.
Who ignore the fact that McCoy cursed all the time in the movies.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, anything else you want to touch on in this episode?
Yeah.
Keep it coming then. Come on.
I don't know how to feel about it, but I've got a little Easter egg here.
Yeah. What's the Easter egg?
My problem is a nice Easter egg, but it also shrinks the world a bit. But
well, Rios' origin is based in the synth, so we're already doing that. So why not? What shrinks the world?
This is still Rios' origin, or really his captain's. Alonso Vandermeer was the first officer of a captain that Picard went to the academy with.
Mm-hmm.
Marta Badanides. I think that's how you said that name. But I knew as soon as he said Marta, I was like, shit. She was in Tapestry in the episode where he dies, right, and Q takes him back and he gets with the girl. That's Marta.
Okay.
Or Marty. Yeah.
All right. That doesn't really bother me. I guess that makes the world a little smaller, but it also, at least it's through a couple of steps, and it's not a super secret thing. It's still Starfleet. So, like, you know, whatever. That's not a big deal.
It's one of those things where it's like, It's one of those things that people complain about from time to time, where you're just like, you hear stuff like that and you're like, God, how small is Starfleet? Like, really?
Right. I get that, but it is like, it's a person from his generation, because it's like 3 generations of captains ago, you know? It's like, it just makes sense that he would know that captain. Now, the fact that captain is someone from an episode of TNG, it's also, but at least it wasn't like, I knew his captain. His captain was Jurati. You know what I mean? Like that would feel smaller to me. But the fact that I didn't even recognize Marta's name, so I remember that now that you mention it. But I would not have recognized that Easter eggs. But that's fun little Easter egg in my mind. I didn't think that shrinks the world too much.
It shrinks it for me, but you know, I did like hearing that she was around and like, oh, she became a captain. Cool.
Yeah, that's neat.
She was a cutie. He should have held on to that one. She had quite a brain on her, too. Mm-hmm. The whole package. But he was too much of a dick. Had to go get his heart stabbed.
Mm-hmm. Had to go get his heart stabbed.
That's the thing.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, there's a lot of really great stuff in this episode. And I feel like I'm going to... Part of what's keeping me not having as much to say is there's so many little. There's one conversation we haven't even touched on is a great conversation between Soji and Picard about Data.
Yeah, that was a good scene.
It was a great scene. Really, really great. And Picard, in many ways, is getting exactly what he's looking for by reaching out. He actually got to sort of talk to Data. And through this version of these synths, she is able to experience Data's emotions in a way Data was never able to.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought that was really nice.
Yeah.
It was really nice. And able to communicate them to Picard in a way that he never got the chance to hear from Data. It was really, really nice.
That is nice.
Yeah.
We have some feedback.
Yeah.
And I can't find the feedback that I'm looking for necessarily. Like, I've got a bunch here that I have found, but someone asked us last week if we had any idea which Enterprise they were on or where they were at. Or who, not where they were at. Who was the captain?
Who's the captain and where's the Enterprise now?
And then another listener, I want to say he was Nerdy-tastic, but I'm not completely sure, informed me that it's Worf. And that's based on one of those
online game, I think.
No, one of those novels, one of the Picard novels.
Oh, really?
Come out, yeah.
Oh, I see. I bought that novel. I still haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah. So according to that, Worf is the captain of the Enterprise.
Interesting. Cool. Sweet.
Mm-hmm. Stu Little sent us quite a bit here. Did you want to talk anything else about this episode? Or
let's dive into feedback. It'll probably spur on some other things.
All right. Stu Little says, I wanted to ask you guys about effing in modern Star Trek, not the act, but the word. And I'm pro both.
I'm pro both.
And other strong words like shit and such. How are you feeling about Picard and Discovery featuring the swears, and do you have any headcanon about why it's suddenly a thing these characters do? I'm wondering if characters have always swore, but the shipwide universal translators, those are a thing, right? Are filtering out the stronger language from the TOS period onwards, at least in English. Klingon and French featuring swears is noticeably not translated on the shows. Meanwhile, the main characters on Picard aren't on Federation ships, so they aren't getting censored. I also have a theory about the Rios programs and why they have such distinctive personalities despite how utilitarian their purposes would be. What if they were programmed to act like the dead crewmates from Rios' old ship? And the reason they look like him is because making them look like real people would be too painful for him, or maybe they've actually implemented a security feature in holograms where you can't model one after a real person without their permission due to potential misuse. Call it Barclay's Law. Oh, that would have been so good.
That's great.
That would have been so good. I mean, we know it's not what happened now, but in this episode.
That's really, really great. Barclay's Law.
Just to add to your musings of Tom Paris working as a freelance ship captain from the last episode, I'd like to add that Harry Kim should be on the bridge crew too, just so Tom can assign him the rank of ensign again. I had a musing that Tom Paris and Chief O'Brien would have like an old shipyard together. I don't think I had a freelance ship. Did you? Was that part of one of your things?
Oh, I think I talked about the fact that what if that was that captain they were talking about? When I was thinking about that captain, I was the only guy that popped in my head was Tom Paris.
Right. I don't, as for the cursing, I don't mind.
Yeah.
And I don't mind because, as I just said a few minutes ago, in the 60s Star Trek show, Dr. McCoy said, damn and hell. And then in the movies, he said, son of a bitch and GD and all sorts of things. So he didn't go the F word route. He didn't quite hit there, but son of a bitch, bastard, all that.
Yeah. And all those things are based on the actual censors of the thing they're being made. They're not
right.
And I don't think they're based in in anything in Star Trek itself. Although the translator idea is interesting. You could say that the translator maybe has different settings, and you were like, maybe we're listening to it through whatever settings the show is set to. You know what I mean?
I feel like I could hear Picard almost saying, though, we've evolved. We've evolved to understand that words can't hurt us.
Right.
Only sticks and stones and phasers can hurt us.
Luckily, he never did that, because
right.
I liked, I don't know. I'm of two minds. As I've said in the past, obviously cussing does not offend me. And I don't care at all, but I also do want a Star Trek that can be shared multi-generationally. And, a lot of parents do care and are not going to want their kids to watch something with the F word in it. So it's hard. They can't watch this new Star Trek they're loving with their kids, which is disappointing. And I totally get, and I've said it many, many times. I want these shows to be introducible to children. But I want to leave room for Star Trek to evolve and for them to make versions of Star Trek that are for adults. I guess, right. Doctor Who has an interesting model where Doctor Who is for everyone, but Torchwood is for adults and the Sarah Jane Adventures is for kids, but they still have Doctor Who that works for everybody.
And it's all canon with each other, which is, I think, what they're working towards with these animated treks, especially the one for Nickelodeon.
See, I hope you're right, but we'll see. We'll see how well they are able to keep canon across those things. I think Doctor Who does a good job in keeping those tones and still maintaining canon. But I'm as silly as they've been with some canon things, especially in the animated stuff that we've seen so far. I'm worried that when we get some of this animated stuff, they'll just throw all canon out the window, and we'll have to completely be a different universe.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm already living in that reality.
Sure.
I'm like, I expect them to keep canon as well as they always have. Poorly.
Yeah.
And that's across the board. That is across the board. Every show has seriously disrupted canon in some way.
Sure, but I don't have to like it.
No, and I don't like it either.
I know, we'll call it out because I don't like it.
But every series, people have cursed, and it's... I don't know. I think, if you're doing a show like Picard and you know what you're doing, you know the kind of show you're making, it's perfectly okay to swear. Because guess what? If they weren't mad about the cursing, they'd be mad about the violence. And, not in this country, they're not mad about the violence, but in the UK, they're mad about the violence. They're like, so what? They're cursing. But Elnor just cut a guy's head off.
Yeah, that is very fair. Yeah, and I mean, it's not like we haven't had those conversations at 2. It's not like when I talk about this stuff, at least, I do care for that stuff too, when I'm talking about the kids being able to watch this stuff. Sex, violence, language, all that stuff is stuff that some parents are going to have problems with. It may be different things for different parents, but I don't know. I don't mind Star Trek having adult versions. I just don't want it all to be adult. And I'd like there to be a place for content that is multi-generational. And I feel like that we've lost that in sci-fi in general. Like, what's a good multi-generational science fiction show right now?
A good multi-generational sci-fi show right now. I don't follow science fiction. I follow Star Trek. I like Star Trek. It's sort of like, at work, one of the new guys was like, "Hey man, what kind of music you listen to?" And I was like, I don't really claim a genre. I don't follow genres. I like artists. So you could, and it really annoys me that people are like, "What do you like?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I like Foo Fighters." So they're like, "Oh, okay, cool. So you like Hinder?" No. I don't like Hinder. Just because they're both rock doesn't mean I like both. So it's sort of like that. I follow Star Trek and a few other things that kind of veer into science fiction.
Sure.
But I don't know. I do think there should be all-encompassing, family-friendly Star Trek.
Yeah.
But, you know, by the same measure, there were episodes of TNG that people wrote angry letters about because they don't want their kids seeing that.
Sure, and that's very true, especially with the violence. Like, I loved that everyone's talking about 7 of 9 blowing up, whatever, that lady or Icheb's stuff, and like all the violence happening in this show, and it's like, yeah, but look at some of the TNG stuff. Like, sure, it wasn't as well, the effects weren't as good, but man, when that like that what's that, Conspiracy? Is that the episode where they blow that guy's head off?
Yeah, it's like season 1.
Yeah, it is. It's like the second to last episode of season 1 or something like that. When they blow the head off of that dude, and he like, and a bug crawls out of his chest cavity. Like, there's some gross stuff. So I don't think that Picard is breaking
treading
new ground.
Necessarily new ground. Yeah,
no. But I mean, with the F word, it is, I guess. But I don't really care.
Discovery tread that ground.
Oh yeah, that's probably true. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a big deal when Discovery said it, and then the other Star Trek fans, you know, said, "Well, who cares? It's not real Star Trek." But now because it's in Picard,
because Jean-Luc is there,
and because Patrick Stewart uttered the F word, and
did he?
He did in the episode before he leaves and goes to space. He does.
Okay, interesting. All right,
I think.
I don't recall. I have the worst memory.
It's okay.
And you know, honestly, I had a little brain fuzzy tonight. I woke up.
I'm tired.
We got up to record. So I always go to bed at 9:00 so I can wake up at 1 a.m., watch the show, and cast about it with you. Went to sleep at 9, or I tried to go to bed at 9, but Alyssa wasn't home yet, and so that's my girlfriend. And we ended up she ended up not getting home till like 10, and so we weren't going to sleep till like 10:30 or 11. So then I got up at 1, came in the den to watch Star Trek, and I sat down and fell asleep and slept till about 2, sitting up in a chair. So that's why I got on here so late.
Yeah, you're good. Kyoki Young says, "Dear Stranded Pandas,
hey,
thanks for doing your podcast. None of my friends want to pay for CBS All Access, but neither do they want me to spoil Star Trek Picard for them. So the only quote-unquote discussion I get about this fine show is with you. I've been enjoying it so far, despite it feeling a little bit like nostalgia guest star of the week. I'm constantly surprised how deep geek it goes into Trek lore. I wonder whether CBS has figured out that all access subscribers are Trekkers anyway, so there's no need to worry about confusing a mainstream audience. Who would wonder who, for example, Icheb was? Feedback: while I can understand Dave's gripe about the retcon design of Pike's Enterprise, if we really need to headcanon it, maybe that's the way it looked in a specific period of time after a particular refit. The ship did change slightly even during the original series, losing the rod sticking out of the red Bussard collectors at the front of the warp nacelles. Kind of a stretch, but whatever helps you sleep at night." I know that there's no way that's true, so it's just I'm sorry, man. I don't sleep. Crackpot Theory. My apologies if this has already appeared on the interwebs, but I had an idea about who Commodore O could be. I don't think she's a Romulan, because that seems too obvious. The sunglasses, however, really stuck out as some kind of clue. What if she's a Vulcan, but from the Mirror Universe? We know humans from the Mirror Universe are sensitive to light. Maybe Vulcans are too. Keep on trekking. Kyoki from Seattle.
Hey, thanks for writing, Kyoki. Love that you're over here on the Trek cast with us. He writes in over at the Marvel cast as well.
Cool. Well, first of all, I think I'm sorry none of your friends want to pay for CBS All Access, but luckily Picard is almost over, which means that they could sign up for a free trial and just binge the whole thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's a thing. I don't agree with you about CBS All Access, the subscribers being only Trekkers, because there's a lot of stuff on CBS All Access, and the two big fandoms I can think of other than Star Trek, and I know people in real life who subscribe to CBS All Access for these things. One, Big Brother. They have every season of Big Brother.
Don't they have like a bunch of live feeds and stuff from Big Brother or something like that?
Absolutely, they have all the you have to be an all access subscriber to watch the live feeds when the show is going on. The other thing was the Good Wife spinoff, The Good Fight. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talking about it. So I agree with you, but I do think his point is taken that most people who sign up for All Access for Picard, like they're coming on here to watch Picard, they're mostly Trek fans and probably know the deep knowledge. But I would challenge the point that like a lot of the stuff they do, I think, has been pretty tasteful. Yes, he goes to visit old friends and like Icheb, for instance, he mentions Icheb. Like they don't know, they may not know or care who Icheb is, or like, but honestly, like it took me a minute to know or remember who Icheb was. But I think that you don't really have to know to get the point. You know what I mean? Like you just have to know that she lost someone, and then everything else is explained in the episode. I mean, and really everything. This could have been someone, they could have inserted a character into that like was just another XB that she met from Hugh's number of XBs that he'd freed or whatever, you know? She could have freed another XB since Voyager, and that's who that was on that table, and it would have worked. You know, they could have made that work. And I think that you get enough context that that's all that really matters.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, you know, as far as try not to confuse a mainstream audience too much. My brother-in-law Spencer doesn't watch Star Trek. He doesn't know Star Trek, but he's watching Picard and enjoying it. Nice. It's turning him somewhat. So I don't think
talking about going back and watch other episodes and stuff. I love that.
Yeah. So I think there is. I think they're on the right path, at least. They're all over social media right now touting that they are the only streaming service that has every Star Trek series streaming. And I think it's a great thing. I've seen people talk about like, oh, I see that they have everything there. Well, maybe because it's daunting when you're like, well, and as a Star Trek fan, when I'm talking to people and they're like, how do I watch Star Trek? They're interested. But I'm like, well, all these series are on Netflix, but Discovery and Picard are only on CBS All Access. They're like, oh, okay, well, what about the movies? Well, some of them are on Amazon Prime. No, you need everything on one service, and I think that is important for newcomers.
Do they have all the movies on CBS All Access?
I don't know if they've got all of them, but they're slowly accruing them since the merger. Which that merger has screwed me over too.
Why has the merger screwed you over?
I mean, I'll take it more than them being separate, but because of the merger, I think they stopped. They haven't even done it a year. They had a partnership going with TeePublic and Redbubble so fans, like designers, can create their own licensed Star Trek shirts and merch. And you still get the same percentage, but Paramount or not Paramount, CBS got a certain amount, and since the merger, they cut it off.
Oh, that's a bummer.
They're not accepting any more fan art submissions.
That sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. There's a whole timeline of things, and that I can explain why the Discovery Enterprise doesn't fit. I've talked about it on the show to some degree, but yeah, I'm just not ever going to acknowledge it. As part of that line, I'm just going to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to imagine that he saw the original Enterprise, or that it's a universe so close to the original universe that the same things are taking place. He just saw a different Enterprise in my memory or something. The crackpot theory, I think it's a good theory. I think we saw it from someone else, and we talked about it pretty extensively, that she might be from the mirror universe. Those sunglasses are still weird to me, man. They're still weird to me, and I don't trust that she's not from the mirror universe yet.
She might be. There might be more mirror universe stuff going on. What if the admonition is in the mirror universe?
Yeah, that was something I brought up last week, actually. Like, what if this was where synths went in the mirror universe?
Right. And
I think that still could be a possibility. We've seen things from the Prime universe disappear, like in the Tholian web. The Defiant went back in time, but it went back in time to the Mirror Universe and accelerated their growth of technology. So, I don't see a reason why the Mirror Universe couldn't get to a point with the synths or whoever, and they might have gone back in time, but to the Prime Universe, and left that star system with that message about the synths.
Yeah,
I don't see a reason why that couldn't be a thing.
Yeah, I think that could be. That could be. Like what if the Mirror Universe is where all this is from? Oh, this is an interesting theory. And Commodore O is from the Mirror Universe. She's over here spreading the knowledge of the admonition among the people. But it is something from the distant past, or it is something from the distant past of the Mirror Universe or something. Well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because in the distant past would be so different that it would mess up the whole timeline. Never mind. Yeah. Theory messed up.
It would have to be from the future or current day of the Mirror Universe, but having gone back in time, and like maybe they tried to go back in time to tell themselves not to do it, and they accidentally came to the Prime Universe.
Yeah, that's absolutely possible.
We got a little bit from Dylan Diggs here. He says, "Hey guys, I was watching episode 7 last week and listening to the cast, and one thing came to mind. I think the fact that you all and myself keep thinking of spin-off shows from Picard is because they're doing a really good job of world building. Maybe that's a CBS All Access strategy. I think it definitely is. Maybe it will just produce short treks. I don't know, but I like it. So far, I have potential spin-offs for the Fenris Rangers, Kestra Starfleet Academy, and Riker and Troy. I'd also be down to see more of Picard's Romulan friends down at the winery. Seriously, we didn't get enough of them. Never mind, this seems like a great set of shows. I'm set. In particular, I'd be excited about a Kestra show. I think Matt talked about this a while ago, but Star Trek always had provided viewing that was pretty accessible for all ages. Yeah, you were just talking about that like 2 seconds ago. I love the more adult take to Picard, but I would also love to be able to show my 3-year-old son, my 3-year-old some new Star Trek in addition to the older stuff. Kestra might be a great vector for that. She's already a better child character than Wesley or Naomi Wildman. After all, unrelated, but I'm guessing the Doctor isn't showing up. Maybe season 2? I'm still holding out for lore. Clearly, there's this theme about duality and there being a good/bad version of the same character that kind of derives from the Data, lore, and Picard Shinzon dichotomies. I'm guessing from all of these Romulan premonitions that Soji is the bad side of Daj, just like lore is. Nevertheless, there's a huge hole here as to where/how he got decommissioned. It makes more sense than Maddox somehow finding a random cell of data from the debris of the atomized scimitar. Live long and prosper, Dylan Diggs." Now, I never took it that he found a random cell from the scimitar. Data was in active communication and helping him in science. Like, he was helping him in figuring out how to replicate androids. Like, he sent him whole diaries about his daily routines. They'd become friends. Like, I assume they went to by hook or by crook, I assume that Data got him some of those neurons. Like, and it was possible that, and completely plausible at this point still, I'd say, that he could have gotten them from a decommissioned lore.
Yeah.
After Descent.
Well, I thought we were supposed to believe that he got them from B4. I think that's what they said in the first episode.
He did have B4 there.
Yeah, well, I thought he said that the reason that they these were Data's neurons is because, like, Data's personality had been downloaded to B4, and it was a B4 neuron, even though they weren't as advanced. I thought that's what they said in the first episode. Now, it could have been a lie, it could have been lore, or whatever. Yeah, but all of Data's memory and stuff was thrown into B4. Here's the thing, though, I meant to mention, and it ties into this. Data, lore, B4.
Now we find out there are 3 of this girl. Jana, Daj, Soji.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going with 3 now?
Or are they going with 5? 5 queens, man.
I could deal with that too. Where are the other Sung robots?
Yeah, maybe there are more, 2 other Sung robots. Robots? What am I doing? Maybe there's other Sung robots out there. But I think what I find interesting more so than all of this, and I can't believe we haven't talked about this on the actual so far. Man, there's just, this episode was so packed with stuff, some good, some bad, and I'm just like, there's so much to talk about. But one of the biggest things is apparently Jana was around 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So apparently Maddox created these synths over 10 years ago. And it sounds like they were just about the same thing. So he created advanced synths 10 years ago. So, and we know there's a planet where there's at least one male synth from there. Beautiful Flower, I believe is his name. Which is also a strange name. But yeah. But we also know Maddox, or we also know her father, Soji's implanted father, worked with flowers, and like I wonder if that has something to do with Beautiful Flower. But more fascinating than any of that is that they're heading to this planet, and it sounds like we'll get there next episode. And how many synths do you think live on this planet?
I don't know.
It sounds like it's feasible. It could be a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like, when you say nest, I think of a lot.
Yeah, well, see, in previous discussions about the nest, we knew that they were only about 3 years old, and so I thought the nest could be like, they created these 2, and the nest could be a lot of, like, I don't know, embryos or something. Like, they're since
I thought you were going to say inbreeders.
Weirdo. It could have been a lot of synths that had not come to fruition yet, or like some sort of machine that could create them, or whatever, or like whatever, something to that effect. But now we know that he had already succeeded 10 years ago, which is such a long time that, especially if he was no longer involved and these synths are self-replicating, how many synths can synths create when synths create synths,
Yeah.
It's could be a lot of synths is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that could make a lot of sense.
Yeah. All right. Any other feedback?
Yeah, Stu Little says Rolaren has to escape from a secret automated Cardassian prison for the Maquis with the help of Tom Riker. Also, holographic Gul Dukat is the warden. # shows we need.
Love that. Absolutely.
I can deal with that.
Yes.
I can deal with that.
Man.
I would love to see him come back as Tom Riker. I've always wanted to see more Tom Riker.
Right. Oh, it'd be great. It'd be really great.
Also, Stu sent us a link to another podcast, The Transporter Room, and said something to keep in mind should you somehow get Alison Pill on for an interview. And he gives us a grimacing face. Did you listen to this thing?
I did.
She's like, apparently he tried to ask her a question about whether or not she thought androids would be real life or would be actual life.
Right.
And she apparently angrily said, "I'm not answering your fucking question, bro."
Right.
But, which cracks me up.
Yeah,
it just does.
It does. I don't think, those junkets, he's on a junket, which those junkets are super stressful, especially for shows like this where they're trying not to spoil things. So
yes.
she thought he was asking for spoilers, and apparently she said, "I'm not answering your fucking question," which, I'm sure Alison Pill was just having a hard day.
Yeah, it happens. I'm sure she's not a jerk all the time.
Right. You should never judge a celebrity based on one interaction because, they deal with stuff all the time. And not to say that they deal with harder stuff than anybody, but anybody can be a jerk at any given time,
including and especially you.
Thank you.
And now me.
I don't know why it had to be especially. I don't know. It sounds like that's about all for today. It is very late. We normally get done with this around 3:30 or 4. It is now almost 4:30, and I am very tired. So I'm going to let you go, my friend, and we'll be back with you very soon, guys. Peace. Joel Untrue. Dang it.
There you go. You got it. Live long and prosper.
1 hour before. It's like the Joel Untrue thing, but now I've mentioned the Joel Untrue thing, so I'm likely to remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.